Hi, sweetheart. This is my last recording. This is your Monday night reading because then, on Tuesday night, I'll be home actually sitting in Mrs. Fluffy reading to you. But I wanted to pick up where I left off last night and give you a Monday night reading. I'm excited to catch up with them in Mitford myself. So are you ready? Here we go. Adele and J.C. Hogan were lying on their leather love seat after an early supper watching the local news. They half sat toed ahead, somewhat constrained by the limited space. "My feet are cold," she said. "I'll get your socks." He slid off the leather, which was finally warmed by body heat, headed toward their bedroom. "No," she said, "wait." He had never seen her leap off the sofa. "What?" "I'll get my socks," she said, running ahead of him. "One little thing I try to do for you. Who says I don't do too much, and you want to jump up and get your socks?" "I'm sorry," she said, standing in front of the chest of drawers. "Honey, darling." "Honey, darling?" JC was wearing sweatpants, and I'd rather be in Mitford t-shirt. "What's this, honey, darling?" He winked at the MPD captain. Maybe this was his big night. "About you being sweet to want to get my socks." She gave him a little shove. "Now hurry back and turn on Antiques Roadshow." Come here. Oh, get away. Oh, come here. Ava's carried home a chunk of grass-fed beef from the local and set it on the kitchen counter. Maybe he'd fire up the grill tonight, or maybe not. He went to the bedroom and changed into his yard clothes. It would be pitch dark in 45 minutes. He wasn't much on grooming a lawn, but he had to do something fast or the town council would be over here with a warrant or whatever, as if this wasn't America. "Are your blades sharp?" Homer Cunningham asked this morning. "I can bring you a video." "Don't bring me a video," he wanted to say. "I will not look at a video of mower blades." "So, okay, my blades chew the grass. A mowed yard at my house looks trampled by cattle, but don't bring me a video." He would make one last pass with rusted blades and next spring hire the job done. He would have hired out this evening's mow, but he needed the exercise, according to Homer. It was amazing what he could learn from his customers. They were up for managing his life, his health, his finances, his marketing ploys, you name it, even his shoes. "Clogs," said Homer's wife, Shirlene. "Good for posture and awesome for back support. You'll feel less tired from being on your feet all day. Plus, they promote circulation. I can send you a link." "Don't send me a link," he thought. "I do not need a link." "I found a wonderful recipe for venison, really simple," Adele Bush said today. "I'll text you." He had literally felt his eyes glaze over. He stepped out of the back door and wrangled the mower off the porch and felt the squeezing around his heart like his chest was stopped up with glue. He coughed, what his daddy had called a rackin' cough, and couldn't seem to stop. He leaned on the handle of the mower and caught his breath. He was sweating. He'd gone to the doctor a year or two ago before the coughing set in and tried to describe the same feeling he just had in his chest. The doc wrote him a script for hypertension. He had taken the script home and put it in a drawer and never saw it again. He looked up and there was the little dog. Leaves thrashed. "Well," he said, hoarse as a frog. He stood for a long moment, stirred by something he couldn't name, and wiped his eyes on his jacket sleeve. The little dog sat by the privet bush. The steak sat on the kitchen counter. Timing, he thought, is everything. He didn't know much, but he knew that much. Coot Hendrick enjoyed reading at night. He had a fine lamp in his upstairs apartment over the bookstore and a pretty good wing chair from the Bain and Blessed at Lord's Chapel, since he sold his mama's place with all the furnishings. Hope and Scott and Grace had made him a nest, as they like to say, for he was as warm as a mouse in a churn. After he washed the supper dishes, he'd finish reading Green Eggs and Ham. Next he would read How the Grinch Stole Christmas. How could anybody steal Christmas? It could not be done. It was a trick notion by the writer to make you read the book. Grace wanted to tell him the story, but he didn't want to know. He wanted to be surprised on every page. Fact is, he'd near about outgrown books with pictures and was now ready to read what they call chapter books. This would be a big jump, and he would always thank Dr. Seuss for helping him learn to read and for teaching him, and it was okay to laugh out loud when you wanted to. The Grinch would be his last picture book. After that, he aimed to tackle Charlotte's Web. "It will make you cry," said Grace. He did not mind crying. It was magic that a book could make a person laugh and cry and feel things they never felt before. He'd come a long way from being a man with no job who couldn't read a lick, what they call illiterate, to a working man with books to read any time he got a notion. To top it off, he was even helping somebody write a book. These days he didn't want for nothing except getting to be St. Nick again and stand in the display window and wave. He had done that a few years back, and it was the best thing he ever done in his life. But Hope and Louise, they said there was too much going on for him to be St. Nick again. The D for December sale, all the gift wrapping, being short-handed, plus running the mail order business, which mushrooms at Christmas. There was just no way he could be St. Nick again when there was so much for everybody to do. Well, I think they ought to let him, what's the big deal? At least a couple hours a day. 8:30. Cynthia had gone upstairs for the nightly bath. He was switching off the lights, and there was Harley's truck backing out of Miss Pringle's driveway. Living proof, he said to Truman, that wonders never cease. Their house phone, which seldom rang in the evening, was hammering away on his desk. Caller ID, Connecticut. He didn't know a soul from Connecticut, but like the rest of the common horde, he couldn't resist a ringing phone. Good evening, Tim Cavanaugh here. Tim Cavanaugh? There was a pause of several beats. You aren't Jeffrey Simon, the journalist? No, ma'am. Timothy Cavanaugh, the Episcopal priest. You're Southern. I am, yes. Southerners say ma'am. We don't say that in Connecticut. Is there something? This is Brooke Logan in Stamford. You called me earlier, I believe. I thought it might be Mr. Simon. No, I didn't call you, no. I had a message from this phone number asking me to call. I can promise it wasn't me. I wrote the number down very carefully. I believe this is a North Carolina area code. Yes, my wife and I are in the mountains, the Blue Ridge. My grandmother was from Asheville. I went there as a child on a train. It was a very long tunnel. I thought I'd gone blind. He laughed. A beautiful area. Our cathedral is in Asheville. So, nice to have spoken with you, Miss Logan. Is there anyone else there who may have called? I'm afraid not. Only my wife and our cat, Truman, who isn't talkative. I must have gotten a digit out of place. Crisp. All business. Thank you, Father. A dial tone. He yawned, eyed the cat door, which was blocked this time by a wastebasket. Don't even think about it, he said to Truman. Well, that's a stopping point, but let me read just a bit more, because, I kind of left me hanging. Friday, October 9, Christmas banners, Easter banners, all manner of banners adorned the walls of his old office, with poster-sized photos of young families snowmobiling, hiking to mountain tops, and diving into various bodies of water. He had to admit that Father Brad's smile was of the light-up-a-room variety. How many parishes could boast a good-looking priest? Good-looking, it may be said, in a good way. Outdoorsman, gardenia enthusiast, ex-Marine, and all-around lover of life. He was the picture of health and enthusiasm, complete with a gardenia blossom on his desk. Climbs hardy, said Father Brad, blooms well into fall, tolerates temperatures to 0. Father Brad poured himself a cup of fresh brewed coffee and a cup of water for his guest. What do you hear from Talbot? Volunteering at a soup kitchen in Toledo. While to Mitford, Henry Talbot had wrecked both his standing as a priest and his long-term marriage, then disappeared. On occasion, a postcard arrived in the Cavanaugh mailbox, postmarks from New Mexico to Ohio. Brief messages indicated he was pulling himself together, peeling his onion, Bishop Martin had said. Now here's a question for you. On the phone from Colorado, you mentioned Mary Ellen, but the wind carried away the context. Father Brad literally burst into laughter. You're worse than any woman, Father. True, ever hungry for context. She was on the trip with us, my daughters, their husbands, my granddaughters. It was a wonderful time. She's a great sport. Had never rafted in whitewater, but was up for it, and good job. Did I say she wrangles a mean breakfast skillet on a burning log? Terrific. Your daughters? They were skeptical, didn't really want to include Mary Ellen, but all that has changed. Get this, Father. I prayed for someone like her, but never believed it could happen. We do that, don't we? Pray for something, but don't trust God for it. Often guilty of the same offense, he said, raising his hand. What's this about a skillet on a burning log? It's called a Swedish fire torch. Split a big log in 7 or 8 pie shapes. Leave about 6 inches of uncut wood at the base. Dig a hole. Stand the log in the hole. Pour oil or stuff paper around the pie shapes. Throw in a match, and there you go. A cooking fire that lasts several hours. Hope to introduce it this year at Snow Camp. Snow Camp is going forward? There's one eternal problem with snow camping. We've got to have snow, and there's no way to know that yet. I find it exhilarating, but it can be pretty scary for the novice. It can make you search for something deeper in yourself. The year you joined us, it was mud camp. They had a laugh. He had definitely searched for something deeper. When he signed on with Father Brad, there had been an inch of the predicted 6 on the ground, followed immediately by sheets of icy rain, and not another flake. The campsite was a mud wallow. They had taken refuge in a cabin built in 1914 by a moonshiner and converted into a way station for hikers. Historic, sodden, freezing, a misery of the first order. So considering that they had no snow, could they please go home? No way. Father Brad had other ideas, and God had used the whole tribulation for good. 2 of their party of 5 teenage boys, including Dooley's brother Sammy, had turned their lives around. Dooley's sister Jessie, he said, what do you think? I think she could sign on out of spite to prove she's tough, but she may not be up to it physically. Overweight, a smoker, a problem with pharmaceuticals, barely managing to hang on at school. As you know, camp rules are no drugs, no tobacco, a note from the family doctor, cell phones checked at the church. Who's going? Mary Ellen was a Girl Scout leader and school counselor. She's very excited about this. Also one of our youth group leaders. Have you spoken with Pauline? Pauline asked if I'd talk with Jessie. Jessie can be a pain to catch up with. I'll swing by her bus stop Monday morning, offer her a ride. If that doesn't work, I'll go to Plan B. You know, by the way, that I'll carry my phone. There's the place on this ridge where you can get service. I'll give you a shout Saturday morning. You heard the news about Pooh? Awesome, as they say. I'm meeting him in the nave at 11. He didn't want to talk with me. He wanted to talk with you. You raised Dooley, rescued Jessie, recovered Sammy, and Pauline says you hustled Pooh out of a desperate situation. You're the magic with the Barlows. Not with Jessie. Nobody's magic with Jessie. The Lord's Chapel priest looked uncharacteristically solemn. Then he smiled. Not yet, anyway. He believed in Father Brad, who conceded with Goethe that correction is good, but encouragement is better. Bottom line, his friend was home from the canyons and in love, ready to pitch in for the youngest of the Barlows. He felt that his own smile may be lighting up at least a fraction of the room. So there you go. Stay tuned. Tuesday night I'll be there in your own room reading to you, catching up together like, normal, maybe with a cup of tea. I love you, baby. I'll be calling you off and on, letting you participate in whatever I end up doing in my last day here, and then, of course, 5 o'clock Tuesday morning off and off. I love you. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful evening, a wonderful sleep. Good night.